Good evening. Welcome to the latest edition of Last Bell Boxing. Today with your legend, sports reporter Leigh Curtis. Good evening, Leigh.
Good evening, lads. How are we doing?
Yeah,
really good. Thanks, Leigh.
We're also joined with Andy. Give us a wave, Andy, for the subscribers.
How are we doing? All right.
So this is a bit of a Nottingham special today in honour of past champions and hopefully champions in waiting. So, Leigh, thank you for joining us. We know you've covered a lot of boxing in Nottingham in various roles. So let's go to the beginning. Let's talk about Carl Froch.
The Cobra.
Now, I've done a bit of homework on you, young man, and you've been very complimentary about Mr. Froch in your articles. One statement saying, without doubt, one of the best world champions this country has ever produced.
Well, it's quite right as well.
I fully agree. So I think the first question I'd like to put to you, would you beat Joe Calzaghe?
Oh, do you know what? There was so many dream fights that I wanted to see Carl fighting because, you know, he had such a phenomenal chin and he was so difficult to stop. And he was just a sheer brute, you know, absolutely ferocious competitor, absolute warrior in the ring. Would he have beaten Calzaghe? I think it'd be very, very close. But purely from being Nottingham biased, I think, I think he would have stopped him, you know.
Yeah, let me give you a bit of a backstory here, Leigh. Andy proclaims to be a Nottingham boxing fan, but he gives me grief week in, week out on our live show because I say Froch would have got to Calzaghe. Calzaghe it was a bit of a slapper, and I think Froch would have stopped him.
Yeah.
So I'll let Andy explain why he's a bit of a Judas when it comes to Carl Froch.
It's not being a Judas. It's being sensible, isn't it? So for me, I'm a huge Froch fan, by the way. I've seen him win his first world title in the stadium. It was great that night against Pascal, and he's been great since. I've got absolutely no bones about it. But for me, Calzaghe just had a little bit too much boxing nous, a little bit too much speed. He'd move around the ring. I think he gives Froch loads of trouble. I agree with you. Very close, but I think Calzaghe wins it on points. People don't.
Yeah, he wouldn't have stopped him. There's no way Calzaghe would have stopped Carl.
No. And I don't think Froch would have stopped Calzaghe either because Calzaghe's chin was underrated. You look at his record. How many people stopped him? None, because he didn't lose. You know, and he was great fighters as well. Yeah,
it would have been an unbelievable fight, but the word was that Calzaghe didn't fancy it, did he? So
no, you're right. He didn't. He dropped the belt, didn't he, and went and fought in America instead. He fought Hopkins, didn't he, instead?
Yeah, I mean, do you know what? I mean, I came into the post when it was my only sort of my first fight and my only fight covering Carl was George Groves 2.
Wow. What a fight, though.
Oh, my God. Unbelievable. Press conference. I still maintain, I mean, I've covered some pretty big events in my career, but nothing will top that. Nothing will top it. 80,000 at Wembley, the first 80,000-seater, crowd, 80,000 crowd to watch a boxing spectacle that big in this country. Phenomenal night. And obviously, Anthony Joshua's on the same card. Unbelievable night, and I was ringside as well. It's Matchroom.
Wow, you lucky person.
Yeah, I've got to give credit to Matchroom because they do get a bit of stick. I'll tell you what, they look after the local lads. They look after the local journalists. They've managed to get myself in and Charlie Slater from the BBC in for the Lee Wood fight this weekend. And I'll always give them their due. It's not like some football clubs. I've had some problems with football clubs who certainly wouldn't have let me in for a few games last season, even though there was plenty of room. Pandemic, but credit to Matchroom. They certainly come up trumps, and I think they understand how important it is to sort of the local media there representing the local boxers. So, but yeah, going back to Froch, yeah, that was an unbelievable night. And the one thing that disappointed me, because I still felt that Froch had plenty in the tank to give, and I understand and when I spoke to him, he was all about making sure you leave your legacy intact.
Yeah.
You leave the game with your faculties intact. You're not punch drunk, and he's done that. But in saying that, I really wanted him to get his dream fight in Vegas. That was the one thing that I know he always wanted. And there was a lot of talk about Julio Cesar Chavez.
Yeah. How close do you think that was, Lee?
I think if, as Carl put it, if Julio had come out of the mountains, where I don't know what he was up to, I think that fight would have been made. But people ask me now, did he retire too early? I think he did, but he'd made his money, got out with his health intact, and that's the most important thing. He's got a beautiful family, Rachel, Rocco, Natalia, etc., and great brother in Lee, and why not enjoy it? I mean,
a great bar in the team that I've visited once or twice, let's say.
Yeah, I mean, so for those instances, I think purely from my own selfish point of view, because I loved watching Carl fight even before I came to the post, I'd love to have seen him just get his dream fight in Las Vegas. Although I think, people talk about dream fights. I'd love to have seen him fight Golovkin as well.
No, that's another debate.
Unbelievable fight.
No, that's another debate we have, Lee. So this is my view that Carl Froch would have just been too big for Golovkin. I think it'd be too big, too powerful, and I might sound a bit biased here, but I just do. I think he'd have beat Golovkin. We've got a couple of co-presenters, one from the northeast, who thinks Golovkin would have beat Froch quite easily. But I think Froch's boxing skills are very underestimated. People see him as a bit of a slugger, when in truth, he had a stellar amateur career as well, didn't he, Lee?
Yeah. I mean, Robert McCracken, fantastic trainer as well. I mean, how could you not learn? Carl was very underrated in terms of what he brought into the ring in terms of his style. Tough as teak as well. No, he was a terrific boxer. And also he was blessed with something that I almost think it's a freak chin. Honestly, I think he's been blessed with it. He was blessed with a freak chin, because in the first Groves-Froch fight, I'm telling you now, if Groves lands that shot on any other super middleweight, that's a knockout.
Well, he's asleep when he's going down, isn't he?
100% agree. 100%.
Yeah. So I think, and that's why I love Carl. He was game as. He always came to fight. He didn't really hide anywhere.
Not only that first knockdown though, Lee, Groves beat him up for 6 rounds. Yeah, he did. He was landing clean shots consistently.
Yeah.
And anybody else completely agree with you. If the first knockdown wouldn't have took him out, which it would have, but if it hadn't, then Groves would have stopped any other fighter without a doubt.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was unbelievable powers of recovery, and that's testament to his fitness as well. I mean, he was unbelievably fit. He was just a machine, an absolute machine. He lived the life, and I think, when we talk in the future about great British champions and what they've done for the sport, I think 4-time world champion, never been stopped.
12 world title fights in a row he had.
Yeah. Unbelievable record. And that's my only sort of regret about the Carl era, is that from a selfish point of view, I would have loved to have seen him gone on just purely to get A, to see him fight in Vegas, and B, to get a trip out there.
Yeah. So Lee, favourite Froch fight?
I think it's got to be. I don't think you can. Butte was special because it was such a big fight for him. You needed to win that, and I think he knew what was on the line in that fight. But I think in terms of spectacle, in terms of drama, rivalry, I think Froch Groves 2 was incredible.
I like the way you rub it in regarding the ringside seats when we was up in the Evans looking at little dots. But thanks for that, Lee. Yeah.
No, well, it's one of the perks of the job, but no, I think, and he was probably right in hindsight, probably right to bow out on the back of that, because how do you top that?
Yeah.
How do you top it? Unless you're going to go and fight in America regularly and fight like he wanted to fight in Vegas, So I just didn't see how he could have topped what was an incredible night, you know, and to stop it with that punch as well, to finish that rivalry with that shot, you know, that was a punch from the gods, you know, unbelievable, holy grail of a right hand.
Yeah, I've done a slow-mo a few times on some of the videos on the channel, Lee, just to make people aware just how it lands, you know.
Yeah. He sets it up beautifully as well. He sets it up beautifully. Yeah,
he does
taps with the left hand and then bang straight over the top.
I'll tell you what, Lee, not bad for someone who's got no boxing skills, is it?
No. He's very underrated. Very underrated.
I'll leave that one there.
You don't win 2 ABA championships and a bronze in the worlds if you're not got boxing skill, do you?
Oh no. I mean, some of the nonsense that gets chatted about him. No, and he's a good guy as well. You know, he's obviously doing well for himself now out of the ring. So yeah, I think, and he's a good pundit as well. I think he's intelligent. He's not afraid to say what he thinks, which I think as a pundit is so important these days. You get too many people who sit on the fence, but I like Carl. You know, he says it how he sees it. So yeah, I think he's done really well for himself. I mean, there was talk about him coming back to fight Roy Jones Jr. in that sort of, you know, that fight, exhibition fight. Yeah, just, I mean, that would have been great. I mean, that would have been great, but you know, I've got no. I probably even now I wouldn't bet against him being able to get ready for the ring. You know, for a fight now. You know, he keeps himself in that shape and condition.
It's a big tease though.
Do you need it? You know,
Lee.
Do you need it?
It's a big tease though, isn't it, Lee? He drops it in now and again just to, you know, get his fans hoping he gets back in the ring. But I think he's too shrewd for that. Yeah, very successful outside the ring. You know, why would he need to? Great career. Yeah. You know, unless there's a shed load of money on the table. Even then, does he need any more? Really?
No.
So that we'll finish on Mr. Froch there, but all I'm going to say is legend, absolute legend. Let's move to more recent times, then, Lee. So obviously, recently, Echo Esserman, another great backstory to Echo, isn't there?
Yeah.
You know. So how far do you think Echo can go?
I think he has all the tools to go all the way. I mean, we've just been talking about Carl with a great amateur career. You know, Echo boxed for Team GB.
Yeah.
Unbelievable amateur career. And that, you know, these amateur kids, and this is the thing, you know, repetition, it's the life. And Echo's another fighter who lives the life. You know, you don't see him going out on the town, going wild in between fights, in the gym all the time, wanting to learn. He's got a very good trainer at Barrington Brown.
Yeah.
I watched his fight the weekend. I was in Telford for Notts County's friendly. So I raced back and just managed to get in for like the third round onwards. So I managed to sort of catch the end of the fight. But it went exactly how I thought it would go. Echo's a phenomenal engine. And that's why they call him that. He's just he's an absolute brute in terms of the amount of volume of punches, and he's just a high pressure fighter. And Chris Jenkins couldn't live with him. I think as soon as it got, I think Chris Jenkins got a little bit tired. He got caught and he got hurt. And then once Echo really started to turn it on, he didn't fancy it. And I think the stoppage was always going to come, I thought. I think he's got a great chance.
When you talk about the amateurs, it was Josh Kelly that beat him in the Olympic qualifiers. Well, that's not a bad name, is it?
No, exactly.
At that stage, he was the next big thing, wasn't it, Josh Kelly? You know.
Yeah.
So he's got some pedigree, hasn't he, young man? He's got a lot of pedigree.
Yeah, lovely kid as well. Really nice kid. One of the most humble guys you could ever wish to meet. You know, he's not full of bluster. And I've got great hopes for him. I think, you know, that victory over Chris Jenkins at the weekend would have done him the power of good in terms of his own ambitions. I know he desperately wants the Conor Benn fight, but I've got a worrying feeling that fight with Warren Matchroom, I'm not sure if that will ever get made, to be honest with you. As much as I think the public would love to see it, I think Conor Benn will stay well away from Echo Esserman.
Where would you like to see him going next? Maybe European level before he starts jumping in at world level.
If I was him, I'd probably defend the British. I know when I spoke to him, he would like to keep the British. So I think what's that? 3 defences, isn't it?
Yeah, 3 defences. Yeah,
before you get to keep it. I mean, and what a beautiful belt to keep as well. So I think that would be the next sort of step for him. I think just to defend the British and then perhaps move on to European and then maybe world. But I've got no doubt in my mind whatsoever that he has got all the tools because of how hard he applies himself.
Yeah,
he's got a very good trainer, and he's always in the gym and he's always ticking over and he's ready. And he reminds me very much. He's he looks to be a very, very good pupil, if that makes sense. Always wanting to learn, always knows how can he get better, how can he improve. And I think the sky's the limit for him.
Often when they come up the hard way, they do listen a little bit more, don't they, Lee? Because he's not been given enough. He didn't have no big promotional deal, did he, start with? So he's had to work his way up. Well, let's hope we get a Queensbury fight night in Nottingham then, eh? That could be a possibility.
Well, I mean, that would be lovely. I mean, we were just talking before we came on air, didn't we? About big time boxing coming back to Nottingham. I mean, we were talking about Lee Wood when I did his fight against Ryan Doyle. Obviously, Carl fought in Nottingham. It'd be nice to have that big fight. Maybe at the City Ground, something big like that. But again, I think I was talking to Lee Wood about it yesterday. It's just a shame that obviously the promotional differences. Echo's obviously under Frank Warren. And Lee's under MTK on that side, and I don't know whether having those two on the same bill is doable. Which is a shame because I think if they were all on the same promotional side, it would make everything so much easier. And of course, you've got Ezra Taylor as well coming up, who's such a highly rated prospect. I'm really looking forward to seeing his career get off the ground. But yeah, it'd be lovely to have big time boxing back in Nottingham. Hopefully, if Echo now he's British and Commonwealth title holder, hopefully his next fight will be in Nottingham because he's still, even though he's the British and Commonwealth title holder, his reputation is still largely unknown.
Yeah,
I'd like to see him sort of headline a big show. It's about time he got a big show. Really,
that's the shame about him not being pushed by a big promoter into it earlier on.
Yeah. And I think it's a problem for a lot of boxers I've come across in my career. I remember when Callum Johnson first broke onto the scene and signed with Frank Warren after he'd won the Commonwealth gold medal, I think it was. And his career just never really took off. And you look at him now, and he's such an amazing fighter.
He's a beast, isn't he?
Oh, unbelievable! Really nice kid as well. And I interviewed him a few times, and you could sort of sense the frustration that he wasn't getting out as much as he would have liked. And time's important for a fighter. It's all right going in the gym and ticking over, but 1 year passes and you get one fight. You need to be active. And I'm pretty sure Frank, now that he's got Echo and he's got the British and Commonwealth title, there'll be a queue of people wanting to fight him. Surely Frank will have seen
the atmosphere in the arena from them Froch fights, and he's got to be thinking that's got to be where we go.
Yeah. I'd love to see it. I mean, the ice arena would be a great venue, wouldn't it? It's a good. I remember Lee Wood in there. It was a fantastic atmosphere. I think that would be a great venue. But I do think, I'd like to see Echo headline a show back in Nottingham at some point, just to help him sort of build his reputation up. Because we do it. We tried to do it at the Post. The BBC Radio Nottingham tried to do it. But it's you really need those headlining shows to really, put your name up in lights.
And that's one thing that your mate, Mr. Earn, does very good. I'll call him your mate, Lee, because he's obviously on first name terms, getting ringside seats. I must let it go. Let it go, Carl. Let it go. But he's very good at making sure that the public understand the backstory, isn't it? You know, the backstory, then he brings them through. I think Mr. Earn's probably one of the best at doing that. Yeah,
he's a great showman, Eddie. Great showman, great seller of fights. And that's what it's all about, is he gets the stories right. I mean, the way Froch and Groves was promoted was unbelievable.
Yeah.
You know, everybody in this country was invested in that rivalry. And that's because Eddie knew how to sell it. He knew how to sell it. He knew those two didn't like each other. So, he got the best out of it. And, to sell 80,000 tickets, put on a show like that, and he put on a great show for the public, even non-boxing fans who I knew. When I was going to cover that fight, well, what's going to happen? What's Froch's like with Groves really like? Everybody was invested in it. One of the great rivalries in British boxing, that was.
And that's when it blows up, Leigh, isn't it? When you get it off the back page and get it on into the mainstream.
Yeah, and Eddie knew it. Eddie knew it. He'd struck gold. The fact that the first fight got stopped early, in my opinion, but it set it up, didn't it? Because everyone was thinking, well, I mean, Groves had Froch on the floor. The fight was stopped too early. Got to have a rematch. And I
think Howard is a legend for that decision. I do. I think it was bang on the money.
Yeah.
I think Groves would have got hurt that night if it had continued, because he was gone, and no one would ever convince me of that.
Yeah, and he would have had a job to hold Carl off for the remaining rounds, because Carl is one of those fighters. Late rounds, he
smells blood.
Great engine, great.
Carl was definitely stopping him, wasn't it?
Yeah, 100%.
It'd have hurt him. I think Howard saved him for another day. If you want to call it that decision.
Yeah, but I guess if they'd have let it gone on and Froch had got the stoppage that first fight, we wouldn't have had the Wembley fight. But on the side of that, if Froch had got the victory conclusively that night, then perhaps he might have got his dream fight in Vegas. Funny how things work, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we'll never know. But I don't think anything will top that. He's a trailblazer in many respects with that Groves Froch 2 fight. So and Eddie got it bang on. Yeah, brilliant night for British boxing. I think that really did wonders for Matchroom. In terms of putting on a real stellar show, it was an unbelievable occasion.
Well, it got you a ringside seat in the rematch, mate, didn't it? So you were quite happy with it. Let it go. Okay, moving on then, Leigh, to Mr. Wood. Wow, how excited am I for this fight of the weekend? So I've seen the press conference today. It's true what Ern said in a way regarding this fight's come from nowhere, hasn't it, Leigh? In a way, it's been plucked from nowhere. But he's very calm today. I think Leigh Wood's bang up for this. We've had him on the show twice. We had him on earlier on in the week, and he looked very composed. Yeah, Ben Davison's doing a great job. He's obviously very comfortable in his own skin. So break it down for me then, Leigh. How's this one playing out?
Well, it's funny, because once that fight got announced, I've got to be honest, I'd never heard of the kid he's fighting. Never heard of him. So I thought, right, I'll do a bit of digging and find, did a bit of research online. Come across his Twitter account, 1,000 followers, and I'm going, it's a bit odd. Because, you're starting to pick up on the vibes that he's supposed to be the next superstar boxer coming from the Far East. And you're thinking, he's only got 1,000 followers. Then it dawned on me that, of course, Twitter's banned in China. So he's not been able to sort of amass that huge social media following that perhaps, would have been indicative of a fighter who's, got the WA title and he's fought 18 fights. I don't think he's not been defeated, has he? So, it was a bit of an odd one. And then I started watching his videos of him punching this metal plate about 100 times. I'm thinking, this lad's got a motor, And when I spoke to Leigh about him today, he said, yesterday, sorry, he said, he mentioned the video about the chickens. Have you seen it?
No.
So, I mean, I don't think he's a big puncher. I think his record proves that. He's only had 2 stoppages.
Yeah, 2 or 3 stoppages, yeah.
So I went and had a look on his Twitter account, and he's done this thing where he's strapped. It's very, very funny, but also a bit disconcerting at the same time, because he strapped these 2 rubber squeaking chickens to a heavy bag. And in 10 seconds, he punches them left, right hand 110 times in 10 seconds. And I'm looking at it and I'm going, what on earth? This kid's unreal. In terms of, how quick and the volume of punching. I think he holds the record for a number of punches thrown over 12 rounds. So the way I see the fight going tomorrow night, on Saturday, is I think it's a clash of Kanzu will try and come and unleash and try and sort of dominate Leigh by sheer volume of punches. And I think Leigh's power, which I think is vastly underestimated by a lot of people, will cause him a real problem because he's very powerful in both hands, Leigh.
Yeah.
And I think it's got the makings of an unbelievable fight. It's one of those fights that's come out of nowhere. Leigh's taken it short notice. If I had one concern, I think would I have liked Leigh to have a little bit longer? Yeah, probably. But again, like we've said about Echo and Carl, and how important it is to live your life, right outside the ring. Yeah. Leigh's always in the gym, always keeps himself in great condition. So I think it really has got the hallmarks of a great fight, and the fact it's now obviously top of the bill, because Conor Ben's pulled out because of COVID. I can't call it, but if I was a betting man and I was at a slight edge, I think if Leigh hits him clean, because he's such a good puncher, and a lot of things. The one thing that Leigh doesn't get a lot of credit for, he's an unbelievable finisher. When he smells blood, his accuracy and his punch selection is incredible. You need to go back and watch him against Reece Mould, against Ryan Doyle. I've done a montage, Leigh. I've done a montage on the channel. Great finisher. Once he smells blood, it's like a great white shark. That's it. He's in for the kill, and he's very rarely wastes a punch.
Do you know what as well, Leigh? I believe in things happen for a reason.
Yeah.
And this
George Groves.
this should have been fighting Josh Warrington.
Yeah.
And that fight never happened. It fell through. Obviously, Warrington went on to fight Laura, and that happened there. So this is just destiny for me.
Yeah. No, I'd agree. And what an unbelievable opportunity for Leigh. And, I can't think. I mean, I've covered Leigh's career for a long time. I was at the Martin Mubberu fight, when he was fighting in small hall shows. And
was you at Clifton Leisure Centre then when he fought there?
You'd have to name me the opponent.
Oh, I'd have to check.
I think it was his first pro fight, I think.
I think it was.
Yeah, because he was actually Terry Allen Unique for a bit as well, which is I live in Lincoln. There's obviously there was a boxing gym in Lincoln, but Leigh's a great kid, and
he's grafted, Leigh, he's grafted to get where
he's had to do it the hard way. He's had to do it the real hard way. He's done the hard yards. And I'm so pleased for him that he's got this opportunity because he's such a great kid, lovely kid, down to earth, not a big timer at all. I remember when I first came over to the post, we went out for a bite to eat. I took him out for a bite to eat, just sort of get acquainted with him. And I've been obviously followed his career as closely as I can. I haven't been able to get to a couple of fights, but it's a life-changing opportunity for him. If he wins tomorrow night, untold riches away. And I tell you what, as well, people won't want to fight him because of his power. Ben Davison's a smart and very shrewd man, and he doesn't say things for the sake of it. And when he says that Leigh Wood is like one of the hardest punchers pound for pound he's ever trained, that tells you about the levels that we're talking about. And he's trained obviously Tyson Fury, Billy Joe Saunders, etc. So
come on then, Mr. Curtis. We don't do splinters. You're on that fence. Give us a prediction then.
It's hard to say because I've never seen Kanzu fight. All I've seen is clips.
Yeah.
So, and I think sometimes it's hard to judge of what a boxer's like over 12 rounds. But I think he wins. I think Leigh's going to win by stoppage. 6th round.
There we go. Yep. You've gone around.
Whatever people do not put money on behalf of my account. My track record in football and boxing isn't pretty. So
is that the bit where you say that's a personal view and not one of anybody else?
That's the disclaimer. Put a little asterisk in the top corner.
Yeah. I'm going round 7 for what it's worth. So
I think I said 7 as well, didn't I?
You did. Yeah. You did. So you said you're there on Saturday, are you, Leigh?
Yes. Yeah, I am there on Saturday. Yeah.
That ringside as well.
I think so. I mean, I wasn't expecting to go, to be honest, because obviously with the fight being at Matchroom headquarters, Obviously, it's restricted crowd. I think there's only going to be, I'm not sure how many people are going to be there.
2,000, is it 3,000?
Yeah, I think it's 3,700.
Tickets are very expensive.
They are very expensive.
Media interest would have been huge because Conor Benn was obviously at that time headlining the show. And I wasn't expecting, but I spoke to Dan Barnard at Matchroom, dropped him a message, and he came back to me and said, no, we'd love to have you there. So, credit to Matchroom, in terms of the media. I mean, remember when doing Carl, the Matchroom did a sort of a lunch with Carl, and all the journalists were invited along, and it was brilliant. I cover football is my main job.
Yeah.
In terms of my day to day, but I think boxing and the way Matchroom handle the media, football clubs could learn so much from them in terms of access and what they do. Very, very good, very slick, very professional. They've got it absolutely bang on.
So you get there Saturday. Do you have to do a COVID test? I'd imagine, anything like that.
No, I don't think so, because the restrictions have been lifted, haven't they?
Yeah.
So I'm waiting to see what the actual accreditation says. But I think, as far as I'm aware, I don't have to do a COVID test, which is I had to do. I went to cover Lincoln City versus Blackpool in the player final, another player failure, and I had to have
I wasn't going to mention that, but. Yeah,
I had to do a COVID test on that day before they'd let me in the ground. So, but I'm not sure what the script is with this one. I don't think I have to do one, no.
Brilliant.
Leigh, do you feel, just on a slightly separate note, do you feel that Nottingham's underrated as a boxing city?
I think it lives and dies, obviously, by its fighters, doesn't it, really?
Because over the years, we've had some absolute quality, haven't we?
Yeah.
The Booth brothers.
Yeah, Booth brothers.
You've got the Booth brothers, you've got Dave Needham.
Yeah.
Errol Bomber Graham, although he fought out at Sheffield, he's from Nottingham. Kirtland Lang. Yeah,
Kirtland Lang, yeah.
And obviously the legend that is Bendigo.
And Bendigo, yeah. And obviously Carl. I think what slowed it down a bit was after Carl, there was no sort of natural successor, was there, in terms of generating that. You need to keep it ticking over in terms of the headlines and the media coverage. And there was it sort of died down a little bit because Leigh was still coming up and doing the hard yards in terms of the small hall shows and etc. and was working. He was at the Ingles, obviously, at that time. And he was getting the odd fight here and there. Echo was grafting away, still boxing for Team GB. So there was no real natural sort of successor straight away. And I think if a city wants to keep itself in the limelight in terms of the boxing, it needs to have a healthy role and conveyor belt of fighters. But hopefully now we're starting to see that, because Echo's got the Commonwealth British welterweight, Leigh's got the Commonwealth and British at featherweight. Regardless of whatever happens tomorrow night, he's still going to keep them anyway. And you've got Ezra Taylor coming up as well. So we're starting to see, and I'm hoping that the success of Leigh and Echo, I'm fully expecting Ezra Taylor to go on and be very good domestically, and I can see him easily winning a British title. I think hopefully that will inspire the next generation to come through, and then we will get that conveyor belt of fighters going again.
So
we spoke to Leigh Wood about bringing the next batch of fighters through, and I know from a friend who's got a kid that does a bit of boxing locally, that Leigh Wood goes into a lot of these gyms, spends a lot of time with these kids, and just that little bit of time spent there has brought the confidence up of that little boy. And he's really desperate now to move on in boxing. Is it really, really important that we get that from these fighters, from Echo and from Leigh?
Yeah, I think so, because you want them to. If you're a young boxer, and you're growing up and you try to learn the trade, these are the kids you idolise. You listen to Leigh Wood talk about Carl Froch growing up in Phoenix ABC and watching him, and just being in the same gym as him, and that sort of, Leigh then thinks, I want to be like Carl Froch. I want to do that. So then, it sort of sets something going up in here, and I think it is important. It is important to have that, getting out into the local community and making the face known among the local boxers, and particularly the very young kids who are just starting out.
And to be fair, Lee, Echo also does a lot in the community, doesn't he?
He does. Yeah. They're both great at that. They both understand, the responsibility and how important the communities are, and both great examples. I think both are really good examples of everything that's great about boxing. To be fair, both very humble, not real trash talkers. They don't need to make big headlines by saying something daft. Just very sensible, level-headed, confident in their own ability. Let the fist do the talking, and both of them are great models, great role models. As was Carl. They all lived the life, and the sort of, what they need to put in to get the very best out of their careers.
So, Lee, I'm going to bring it to an end there. So, thank you for coming on. Another Nottingham / Lincoln legend we've had on the channel. So, there you go. One thing I would say is, just bear in mind, Saturday night, should it go the way we want it to, that we'll be live after the fight until quite late on in the evening doing a live show. So if you get a spare 10 minutes in amongst the prawn sandwiches, just feel free. I'll send you the link in Twitter. Should you be able to spare us 10 minutes to give us a bit of a talk from the actual matchroom fight arena? We'd appreciate 10 minutes of your time, but we appreciate you might be able to.
Yeah, absolutely, no problem. Yeah. Hopefully, we'll we'll all be celebrating on Saturday night, and I'll be happy to come on and give you 10 minutes. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
Appreciate that. So I'll drop you the link in Twitter. Again, thanks for your time, Lee. Hope you enjoyed it as we did.
Yeah, great chat, lads.
And what we'll do, we'll plan a part 2 somewhere in the future. And we can touch on the other Nottingham Boxers. Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
So we'll leave you to get your dinner now, fella. So really appreciate your time. Thanks again. Speak to you soon.
Cheers, Lee. Take care, mate.
Yeah, take care. Ta-ra.
Cheers.